people? Carmel here, my boy Alan. I just want to know
what's going on.
The podcast. Happy Friday, everybody. How you feeling, Alan?
I'm feeling great. I'm really excited about today's topic.
Yes, because the topic is Alan, so you know what that means. As you should be. You should be happy because, you know, we need to learn more about you, man. We talked a little bit about myself and my comedic and acting background, but you got quite the interesting history, man.
I would say it's peculiar.
It's peculiar. It's very. That's a great word. Peculiar, people. It's a peculiar history. Because, even how we got into this whole podcast thing was kind of around, comedy and just learning a little bit about each other. And then even from that, I didn't know a lot of things you start to talk about. So I was like, oh wow, that was unexpected.
Right.
So I mean, I guess the biggest thing that, we mentioned this before on a previous episode is your Navy background. So I mean that's a good place that we should just jump off right there. Like how did that happen?
Right. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And then just real quick, we are gonna talk about this periodically. I do want to talk about Navy things like once a month so that people do get informed about the military and things like that. Okay. And so so what actually made me, I wanted to join the Navy actually right as my junior in high school. Okay. You had the Army, Navy, Marines, and then Air Force. Not any of us really consider the Coast Guard a branch. I'm just going to say this right now. What? Well, you're right. Well, the Department of Homeland Security, they're not even in the military. Right. But anyways, I was too much of a pussy to try to fight, so I didn't want to do Army or the Marines. Okay. And then, so the other between Air Force and Navy. And the Navy had a really good hospital corpsman program, which is like all the I don't want to say male nurses, but the nurses, like they'll do all the physician stuff. At the time, I wanted to be a sports pharmacist, so that's kind of what I wanted to go into. Now, I kind of went back on hey, let's do college first and go from there. But then I started playing online poker as well. I got introduced to a recruiter who told me to go nuke, and then which is nuke engineering. Sorry. And then
because when you hear nuke, I'm thinking it's just gonna blow up people. It's go nuke.
Right.
It's gonna nuke people.
Yeah, but no, it's actually pertaining to like nuclear power, like powering ships, powering submarines. And then it wasn't until I actually got my girlfriend pregnant that I find like, you know what, I want to do something about this. And here's this program. And it's funny because, the reason why I actually picked the nuke program is not only was it because I wanted to do a job that's going to pay me really good when I get out, but also the first 2 years of it is just training and staying in South Carolina. So I was like, well, I got this new girlfriend, got her newly pregnant. I want to try to actually build something and give ourselves a chance. Yeah. And that's kind of actually why I did it.
So when you started into the Navy, into the nuke program, you moved to South Carolina?
Right after.
Okay, you and your girlfriend.
Right.
Okay, all right.
But before that, I walked in just like anybody else. I walked into the recruiting office. I took what they call is a practice ASVAB.
ASVAB.
Right. And it's ASVAB right now. It's Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. Just to be
okay.
So I took this. I walked in and said I wanted to be a nuke, right? Which is, now that I'm, now that I did a tour of recruiting, after that, I realized like, oh my God, this is a gem. So I took the practice ASVAB. I killed it, which is like a math and English composite score. And then after I killed it and did like a 90 something, they're like, all right, well, let's sit down and talk about your history, right? So with that history, they talk a lot about like your finances, your criminal background, your grades, your family members, everything like that. And by the way, if anybody's considered or thinking about joining, you definitely got to be wary about the information. You got to be honest with them.
Yeah.
But a lot of things can disqualify you for a great reason.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And then so. As soon as I, took that practice test, and then I pretty much passed the questionnaire, they signed me up to do the ASVAB, the actual official test. And then, I killed it on there and kind of continued with that.
Wow.
All right. And then with that, after, it's funny because the ASVAB, you're taking it, all the branches take the ASVAB in the same location. You're taking it all. And you have this like old school like 94 Mac computer, and you have this keyboard, except there's only 5 like options: an A, a B, a C, a D, and an E, and they're so separated apart. It's almost like offending just to look at it. Like, do you really think like I would have like picked a number instead of a letter? Right.
So it's only 5 buttons on the keyboard.
On the entire, but they put a whole keyboard there. And so it's A, B, C, D, E, and it's like, oh my God.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So now you take the test, you pass it, you're in. Was there?
Well, there's still more steps to that.
Okay.
So just because you take the test, real quick, just because you took with a certain branch, you're not obligated to that branch. So an ASVAB is the ASVAB is the ASVAB is the ASVAB.
It's just a test for all military.
Right.
Okay.
And regardless of whoever takes you there, you know, you're still good to be independent on your own. So I took my ASVAB test. I ended up passing, but then you still got a whole bunch of things. You still got to go through a physical.
Okay.
And the physical, and that's actually one of the crazier things is about the physical. So you do like a duck. I think they got rid of the duck walk, but they check everything about your medical history.
Okay.
And you have this doctor asking you a bunch of questions. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Those doctors are actually there to find something wrong with you.
Really?
They're not there to pass you. Right. They're there to fail you. They're everything that you tell them they're going to look up. And then the problem that I had when I was a recruiter is that I would take kids to this physical and all of a sudden they diagnose themselves with something like, oh, I've had this chronic cough. I have AIDS. Like, what the hell? And what the doctor does is they just take their word for it. Cause like, why would this kid say this?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden now as a recruiter, what you got to do is you got to take them and get individually tested for these things that they stupidly said that they had. But we're in this generation where we just got to diagnose ourselves off of WebMD.
Sure.
And right. And so I can't tell you how many kids disqualified themselves just by saying that they had something that they never really had.
Now, did they do that on purpose or just because they thought they had that?
They thought that they had to diagnose themselves with something. I don't know what's the way the doctors are asking them something, but my recruiter, when I went in there, he goes, hey, everything you told me was straight, right? He's like, yes. He's like, all right, the doctor is going to go in there, be nice with you, and then he's going to ask you some things and make you feel like you got to tell on yourself.
Wow. Okay. I see. I get it. Okay.
So
it's kind of a lie detector test in a way. Like they're really just trying to push your buttons maybe to get you to say something.
Right.
Yeah.
To incriminate yourself.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And then when that happened, I can't tell you how many kids I'd walk out and the kid's like, oh yeah, I have ADD. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? You know? Like, well, this doctor, kind of made me feel like, and then I feel like I had ADD after he told me that. I'm like, I mean, mind you, at that point though, it's like, hey, if I have to rely my life in your hands and you have no common sense skills to perform and act correctly in that, then it might be a right thing for you not to be.
That might be, Thank you.
And then, and then you go through, not only so you have your ASVAB, you have to pass, right? I ended up getting like an 87 or 88. I forgot what it was specifically. But to qualify to get into the Navy is 30. And then the way that they actually differentiate scores is they actually just look for 50 plus and aboves. Within call those uppers, and everything else is called lowers.
Okay.
And obviously that we do that because, most job ratings are open based on your score. And if you have 50 plus, there's more jobs that are open based on there. And I can't tell you, it's pretty much like a watered down SAT. You have your English, you have your math. Then you have all these random diagnostic tests that are just like, that go like, you spin this one wheel, then what wheel is going to turn this way, what other wheel is going to turn that way. And at the very end of it, you actually have a crypto test. And this crypto test is to test people that potentially want to go into crypto. But in all reality, that's nothing like worth studying unless you want to do that.
Sure. Okay.
So you got that. And
so you have the ASVAB, practice ASVAB, then the real ASVAB, then the physical. And then now what? What's after that? And
now by then you should have at least all your background check complete. But the thing is, right? So, all right. So I'm gonna tell you this right now. There's one thing that there's really, really harp on, the criminal record and the drug history. And every crime that you do or every drug that you use has a tier. And every tier requires a certain amount of approvals, right? So like if I smoked weed, 1 or 2 times, that literally requires no waivers whatsoever.
Okay.
But now if I smoked it between 10 and 100 times, right, then I have to get a waiver to a certain somebody. And if I smoked it more than 100 times, then I have to get it from a higher waiver. And by that time, you get to like that third tier of waivers, you're not going to get approved. Okay. So I would never say don't. I mean, if you're trying to join the military, don't talk about your drug use, but don't. Right. Especially, especially if you're not going to pop for it. And that's like the big thing is if you pop for it, then whatever. But then also there's like, if you tried like coke or heroin, or if you tried, any of those like meth, something really crazy and hard, then you're just kind of like automatically disqualified just based on this and this.
Okay.
And so now And then what people don't understand also with the criminal record, so you have like your speeding tickets, like your bottom tier, but then you got like your misdemeanors, your felonies. And the thing is too, let's say you got arrested for a felony, but you're found innocent. You actually still have to get a waiver for that because it still reflects on your criminal record. Even though you might have been dismissed, it still shows up in a background check.
Wow. Okay.
And
with like a DUI, I'm sure.
Oh, DUI is almost a complete like automatic disqual.
Wow.
And then with that being said though too, now based on what job you're getting though, they might actually approve the waiver. Now let's say, remember I said like we want to focus on the 50s and above, the uppers. Now let's say you're a lower and you only qualify for 2 jobs and they're jobs that anybody can get. Then that recruiter is probably not going to give a crap and not going to fill out the waivers and not going to get ridiculed for it.
Yeah.
But like let's say for me, I was a nuke engineer. I was the exception. So now that, now that you have somebody that's of high value and the Navy needs a lot of, now we're going to push everything to get this guy qualified.
Wow. Okay.
And so, yeah.
Okay. So then did you come in with needing any waivers?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I was like your straight A student.
Okay.
I had like one speeding ticket, I think.
Okay.
Maybe I was trying to do Fast and Furious back then. I don't know.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Of course you were.
I mean, look, Asian Allen in a 98 Nissan Sentra. I don't know what I'm drifting on.
Right, exactly.
That was terrible. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Now, I did actually because to go into the nuke program, you need a special clearance. And like we discussed before, I'm adopted. So because I was a Korean adopted by white people, I had to wait almost a year and a half for my clearance to get approved. Wow. Right. And so
what was the holdup, or what's the
what they do is because you're getting a national level security clearance, right? Like it ain't cheap. And so what they do is, from what I'm told, is that what they do is they take the most extreme scenario, right? Which is, why is this Korean adopted by white people? What happened?
Okay.
And then they got to investigate through and through and through.
Okay. Maybe you're adopted from North Korea.
Exactly.
Being raised to
I'm Kim Jong-un over here, right? Trying to join the Navy and be a nuke, you know what I mean?
I could see that.
So,
okay.
But yeah.
You look a little North Korean. I never told you that, but you look more North Korean.
We all look alike,
I can see a little NoCo in there.
No,
it's a little NoCo. It's a little NoCo.
I mean, just because you've hung out with me when I'm drinking, that's probably where
that comes from. That's when it comes out. That's when I see it. Okay, so you had a year and a half wait for that, which is crazy. Right. So you get the clearance, and then what's next?
Well, I was actually already in after the clearance.
So you were in already. Okay.
Right. And so after I, and here's another thing too, right? A lot of people go into the recruiting office, they want a certain job, right? But the thing is, a lot of people don't qualify for the whatever respective jobs. Like those, not only is the ASVAB test set up in the way it is, but the diagnostic tests are set up for a certain reason. So what you get a lot of kids doing is they go into it, they take the ASVAB, they're not qualified for the job that they want, and now recruiters can do one of two things, right? Which they can be like, all right, well, I'm sorry, you're not qualified, let's take it again, which is very, very, very frowned upon in the recruiting.
Sure.
So what they do is they convince them, a lot of these recruiters convince them to take another job and then convince them that they can convert later on, which is not a lie, but it is absolutely difficult. Like I can win the World Series of Poker main event like next year, but in all reality, like it's tough. It's very, very tough, and that's just as tough as converting rates.
Wow.
Right? I mean, I've seen too many, but there's like one or two things that go along with that as well. Like when you're joining the Navy, when you're joining the military, you should be joining the service to provide a service, and if you're going there for one certain job, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't qualify, like there's a reason why you don't qualify. Nobody can do anything about that. Now for jobs like Nuke or SEAL, they will allow you to retake the exam so that you qualify for it, as long as you're within the tolerance of potentially getting, within there. So like as a Nuke, like I think the bottom score you may be able to get is like 70. If I score 40 something, I'm like, I still want to be a Nuke. Like, you kind of got to be realistic, bro.
Sure.
But if I get like 68, 69 with the other diagnostics lining up with my job score and my composite scores, then I can join and be in the Navy as a Nuke, or they'll let me retake the exam.
Okay.
Otherwise, those kids that go up there, as soon as they qualify, those recruiters' job is to get them in.
Sure.
And that's what they're going to do. They're man, God, like we're taught kind of like choice. We kind of got like teaching what's their vision, why do you want to do their vision, Why are we doing this and this? Well, let me tell you, and there's to be a quadrant of you take them to who they are, what they want in life, and what it means to them, the opportunity that the Navy provides, and the advantage. And what you're supposed to do as a recruiter is align all that back into them.
Okay.
And then that's how you get them in the Navy.
I see. So I know a lot of people join the military because they've got nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
So as a recruiter, is that something you don't want to have because you're kind of like, this kid's just there because like it's my last opportunity, I don't know what else to do? Or would you prefer a kid who's like more, no, I want to do this and let's figure that out?
I like both approaches. Me as a recruiter, I wasn't like that person that just had like a quota of like, I got to get like 5 people in. No, I care about people. I knew I was getting out of the Navy after my recruiting tour. So I'm like, well, why would I want to try to screw somebody for 4 years out of life when I know it's not for them?
Sure.
Right. But I would much rather work with somebody who, like you're saying, kind of doesn't know what they want, kind of like, well, this is kind of like my last option, because those are the people that will not only get into a job pretty quickly, but also they'll accelerate in it because they're like, you know what, this is my opportunity. This is, this is my way of actually getting through and getting past.
Sure.
Whereas you got a lot of those kids that are like, no, I only want this job. I only want that job, blah, 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 blah. And what they call is actually in the recruiting world, we call it job locked. And then when they come in job locked and they don't qualify, then have to go over it all over again. Like, well, you didn't do your job as a recruiter. You didn't sell them on the Navy. You sold them on their job.
Yeah.
And it's just terrible.
Sure.
And then that's another problem. One of the biggest problems right now, not the biggest problem, but one of the things I see in recruiting that is a problem are all these kids, young, ambitious, fit. They want to go in and be a Navy SEAL. They played like, what is it? They play like Call of Duty like 3 times, and all of a sudden they feel like they could be a SEAL.
Rainbow Six and all that. Yeah.
Right. But the SEAL, do you know what the SEAL attrition rate is right now?
I can only imagine.
98%.
Sure.
So, but then you ask, well, then why would the Navy push for the SEALs? Right? It's because when these kids, so first you actually have to be an upper, like we were talking about earlier. So, because not only do you have to have, brute strength and everything like that, you got to have brains to perform these missions. But the thing is, when a person qualifies SEAL, not only are they really highly qualified just to be in the military in general, but then they also like have to pick a secondary job. And so how you fill out the rest of the billets in the Navy that you don't have are the ones that go SEAL that are so stubborn and thinking like, oh, I'm going to be a SEAL. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I remember to this day, we set up a recruiting bench at one of the high schools. And some kid came up to me, fat kid. No offense, I'm not trying to be mean, but he was fat. Okay. You could tell he never did a day of push-ups in his life or anything. Comes up to me and goes, hey, what do you think about me being a SEAL? Right?
Oh, God.
And I was like, and I don't know, I had a bad day. God forgive me. But I told the kids, like, hey, you have a better shot of being a SEAL at SeaWorld than you do in the Navy.
Wow.
And then, it wasn't the most, whatever, but it was a very honest, like,
yeah,
thing.
I mean,
but his mom called me. I remember that to this day. His mom called me like, you told me little Johnny boy couldn't be a SEAL. I'm like, look at the fact that he told you and the fact that he cried to you only proves my point. Because, and that's the thing that people forget real quickly is like the Navy is watering down. Boot camps are watering down. The trainings are watering down. The standards of living. But like war does not have a handicap. War doesn't water down.
No.
And when you're in a special forcing like the SEALs, like, dude, they have so many lives that are relying on you, and you don't have a handicap, and there's no room for error,
right?
In that sense.
That's what's crazy. I think a lot of kids today are so conditioned playing video games and whatever, watching videos and just thinking that's it. They watch highlights. It's nothing different from sports. They see a highlight and then they just want to do that and not understand there's thousands of hours of training for those who are of the elite already. Not just thousands of hours training gets you there. Like, you already have to be an elite athlete as well as being mentally fit. And then the thousands of hours of training come out to get to that point. So it's crazy to, I mean, yeah. And that kid needed that reality check.
He did.
You know, and it's going to come from someone. It just happened to come from you.
Right.
And, the kid being fat and wanting to be a SEAL is just too easy.
That was that North Korea coming out of me, right?
Completely North Korea.
Like, you ain't going to, you ain't joining the SEALs, bro. Like,
if you join, we done.
Right.
We done.
But you know what? I feel like there's a element of honesty that kids don't that kids don't get enough of, especially coming from a recruiter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many times being in the fleet, we're like, yeah, my recruiter lied to me. My recruiter lied to me. Yeah, I got stuck into a job I didn't want to do because I got lied to.
Sure.
So I don't want to be that guy. I would much rather hear from a Navy guy like, oh yeah, my recruiter told me I'm not going to get qualified for that, and he was completely right. Like, hey, my recruiter said I have a better shot of being a SEAL at SeaWorld, and he was completely right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would imagine that kid probably is thanking you now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
He's probably scarred, but he's thanking
he
you.
probably lost some weight.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that was that's like one of the things that just people don't realize. Oh, and then another thing that people don't realize, you actually have to be within height and weight standards before you go in.
There's a height standard?
There's actually, you can be too tall and you can actually be too short.
So I've heard of that for like the Air Force. I know like you can't be, to fit in a freaking plane, you got to be, you can't be too tall. But I never heard of that for the Navy. Yeah. But I guess being in a submarine or whatever, you can't be like gargantuan in there.
Right, right. And I mean, in general, there's the ship is an operating ship. So piping hangs low, things like I'm like there are a lot of times where I wish I was taller. I wish I was like 6 feet at least, right? But then I had a buddy I used to work out with. I was like 6'4" on the ship, and like just seeing him walk around, he used to have his head tilted just so he could get past like the majority of the P-ways.
Wow!
And just so he wouldn't hit his head on a thing. And it's funny because in the treadmills as well, he could only run on one treadmill because that's the only one where you can actually stand straight up.
Wow!
And so, like,
okay,
there's a minimum. I think the minimum height is like 4'7" or something like that.
Okay,
and the max, I forgot what the max is, but it is pretty tall.
Well, I mean, I'm 6'2". I mean, 6'4" is not that much taller, so I'm assuming it would have been cramped for me.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Right. Well, good thing I didn't join the Navy. I'm not a claustrophobic person, but the idea of being in a submarine or a ship like that doesn't sound comfortable to me.
No, I mean it's definitely is something to get used to. I mean, I'll show you pictures of racks and everything like that. But man, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you though. When I was on the rack, my rack had like memory foam on it, and everything. Like it was, I definitely knew I was gonna sleep in this thing for like 8 months out of this next deployment. So for sure, it was set up like I'm gonna be comfortable for those 8 months.
Oh wow, okay, So this all took place now. So you've gone through it as that practice, all that stuff. Got the physical done, you get in, clearance and all that. So to go from just being in the Navy now to being a specialist with nuclear power.
Okay.
Is there like, because I know in between the branches, there's like rivalry and there's like, Air Force, Marines, whatever. But like inside of the Navy itself, is there like, oh, I'm an upper and I'm in an elite level like clearance and you just do this? Like, are there jobs where you kind of look down on other people?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I remember like when I was at MEPS, which is a military entry processing station, and because you do all your physicals and all your testing with like all the other branches, like you could tell some kids are there like, man, you are just going to be a tanker, dude. You're on the front lines. That's like all you're going to do. Well, because dude, I hate to be an asshole, but as much as it's not a shot at them because we need those people. We need those people to be in the front lines. But you can automatically tell which ones were there for the spec ops or which ones were there for the nuke engineering or which ones were there for the not nuke engineering just by having conversations with people.
Wow.
So it's not that I would look down because I don't look down on people. That's not something I do. But automatically, you're like, well, I'm on a different level than they are.
But is there something, because I know like I've been around several branches of the military once. I actually had a job where I was around all four. And there is a very distinct like FU from the other branch. And is that built in? Is there something about that? I mean, I'm sure there's pride in your branch, but is there like a distinct feeling about we hate the other branch for some reason? Because I got that from this. I've gotten that several times where I just, if you're in the Army, we hate Navy. I get there's Army Navy football games and all that, but like there was something about every branch was just like, oh, we hate. It's weird because we're all American. It's all American military, but there's this inner rivalry between the branches that was just crazy. Did you feel that in the Navy? No,
I mean we've had some like shit talking before, like but nothing where I never looked at an Army guy. I'm like, oh, F you because you're in the Army. Like we're all on the same team at the end of the day.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Right. And like every person, for me personally, I've always like thanked people for their service, even if they weren't even in my service or if they served, less time than me. Now, mind you, if they get disrespectful, then it's like, all right, well now we can show out whose dicks are bigger and who's done more in their service. Like, sure.
Right.
You know, but I mean, funny story about that. I went to a Friendsgiving recently, and there's this kid. My homegirl's sister's boyfriend you could tell he's fresh out of boot camp or something. He got like the BCGs, the birth control glasses.
Okay.
Like the thick Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah.
He's got this stupid high tapered fade, and you're like, man, there's no grown adult that voluntarily wants that haircut.
Right.
And then he, like, I remember asking him, like, oh, what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm in the Army. I'm like, oh, cool. How long you been in? Like a year some change. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I remember my homegirl's mom was like, hey, Alan, weren't you in the Navy? I was like, oh, yeah, I was like in for like 12 and a half years, 13 years. And like literally 5 minutes later, he goes, yeah, I'm not in pussy ass branch like the Navy, right? And then so this is also like right after I thanked him for his service. So I looked at him and I'm like, how many deployments have you done? All right. And he just sits there and goes, no, I know some. I'm like, no. How many have you done?
Right.
None. Oh, none. Like, mind you, my first deployment, I got to witness Osama bin Laden's body getting launched off my ship. What have you done with your life? Right? He just sits there and I goes, look, I approach you with all the respect in the world and thank you for your service. Like, how about you have some real medals and ribbons on your chest before you talk to me like that?
Yes.
And it was real quick. And then, so that's the only time I've actually been aggressive towards somebody like that. But like, I've never ever just been like, oh, you're in the Army? Like obviously I'll josh around and talk shit.
Sure.
But like I said, at the very beginning, I'm too much of a pussy to join the Marines and the Army. So if I meet somebody that's been in for about the same amount of time, or I know that they've actually done some real shit, they have my respect whatsoever.
Sure.
Now, mind you, just because you made it through boot camp, like, doesn't mean you're like, oh, I look at you as a fellow service brother or something like that. Right. No. You got to earn your stripes.
Sure.
But yeah, you better believe that I would never go out of my, okay. I feel like that comes from a place of insecurity. Like, the only people that really throw that shade are people that have like zero experience.
I guess so. But I mean, but then to my point, that guy was, talking to you that way. That's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of that from different branches. So that guy's just out of boot camp and you did 12 years. So when you went out, what was your rank? Because I know ranks are different in all.
The ranks are all the same, like E1 through E9,
sure.
O1 through O whatever. I got as an E6.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and I think he was like an E1.
Okay.
E2.
So when do they change? I know like they don't have admirals in the Army. So I mean, what?
Well, okay. So I mean, right. So every rank. So like for the Navy, it goes from anything from seaman recruit, which is the bottom. You go to like seaman as an E3. I know there's going to be jokes about that. Then you go to like petty officer, then chief and master chief. And like it's the equivalent in the Army, except they call it like sergeants and privates and like master sergeant, gunnery sergeants, right? All those other things.
Yeah.
Now it's different in all the branches. So I know that the Army and the Marines, what they do is they just get evaluated and then that's how they advance.
Okay.
And for the Navy and in the Air Force, we take tests. Tests get us to all the way to E7. After E7, then we do boards to get to E8 and E9. Okay. And now on the officer side, it's a selection board every single time. You pretty much get automatically promoted to O3. So O1, O being the officer, O1, O2, O3. Then after O3, then you get selection board and go all the way to whatever. I think it's O10 or O9 is the highest it goes.
Okay.
And then that's like kind of how it goes.
Wow.
Ranking.
Okay, so the O's and the E's, that's like the equivalent to what?
E's enlisted.
Okay.
O is officer.
Okay, so an O10 or O9, is that like an admiral?
Right. That's
okay.
That pretty much. So.
I get it. Okay.
And then those are the generals in the Marines, Army, and Air Force.
Okay. I know most people are used to hearing colonel, major, lieutenant, all those, but often when I talk to people in the military, I hear the E's and the O's, and I'm like,
what is that?
What was that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that was one of the benefits actually to go back into the initial processing thing. As a nuke, we actually go in automatically as an E3.
Okay.
And then so we'd have to do the E1 stuff, E2 stuff, and then we got automatically promoted to E4. So I was, what takes usually most people 2.5 years to get to, I was an E4 within the first 6 months I was in the Navy.
Oh wow.
But that's that goes along with picking a job like nuclear engineering that is actually applicable out in the real world. I get some of these kids that go in two of the biggest pitfalls that kids should never ever do in the join. Never go in undesignated, and that's the thing. So undesignated is so you can go into a community without a rate, and the way that the Navy recruiters sell it is you can go in this community, you can try this out, you can try that out, you can try this out, then pick what you want. And the reality is you're actually just a bitch boy for that community until they fit you somewhere that they absolutely need you. You don't get to pick; they pick for you. And but then they glamorize and glorify it like it's something. And then it's so sad because then you got these kids going in undesignated, no guaranteed job, no guaranteed rating. And then the rest of their Navy career is very slighted.
Wow.
Right. Because it's like you go in, because after you sign your contract, you wait 6 months and like six months, a year, 4 months. It all ranges. They call it the delayed entry program. And then that's where your recruiters are supposed to get you ready for boot camp, things like that. You're supposed to build your rapport. You're supposed to stay qualified. But could you imagine you have all these high hopes of joining the Navy, you leave, and all of a sudden this rapport you built with your recruiter was a complete lie. You're there and then you find out you're just there for a number. And there are so many bitter people in the Navy because of that mindset.
Sure.
Because, and that's the thing too, is, and man, I'm about to throw Navy recruiting under the bus, but whatever, I don't care. This is just real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't real, I wouldn't talk about it.
Sure.
So the thing is, so you actually got people that are career recruiters, and then they call them NC, Navy Counseling.
Okay.
And some of these people, their entire Navy career is in recruiting. So 20 years just recruiting.
Wow.
Doing nothing else, right?
Okay.
So they all usually go in for a job, and then what they, they'll do a couple of years of that job, and then all of a sudden go into recruiting, do so well at it that all of a sudden now that's just their career. So you'll have like these Master Chiefs, these E9s, the highest enlisted ranking, with no sea service ribbon. So sea service ribbon you get after you've been out to sea for so many on days, right? Or with no warfare pins. And warfare pins are what you earn and you qualify for when you're assigned to a ship.
Sure.
So like I was on a carrier, so that's surface warfare. If you're on a submarine, you go into subsurface warfare. But then you have these Master Chiefs that have nothing, right? And the only reason why they got that rank is they recruited all these kids in. And
wow.
And so now there's nothing more of a fraud and nothing more that I despise than being in the recruiting office and seeing some of these NCs talking to these kids about the fleet, talking to them about port calls, talking to them about like seeing, the world. And it's like, dude, you haven't even seen a ship. Who are you to?
And they don't know any different. They hear Master Chief, they're just wow, this guy's got to know, right?
Right. And man, we'll go into that into another discussion between like the quarrels between people that were out in the fleet and served, like actually served a real Navy term, and then the ones that didn't go out to sea.
I guess it's the equivalent of like in the police department where a guy gets in, he kills it, does whatever, but then maybe he's got a good rapport and they make him, a recruiter. But he never actually been in a unit, never actually been outside of a desk. And
correct.
Just like, but he's signing these cats up to come work for the police department and never even shot a gun. Maybe he didn't qualify, in the firing range or whatever. But he's getting all this. Oh yeah, you'll love it. You get on the field, you hit the streets, and you've not been on the streets.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's like what half of the recruiting force is.
Wow.
And out there, and it's dealing with them like and it's funny because, shipmate is a term that we throw around in the Navy, but it's actually like an asshole term. Like, hey, shipmate means like, hey, you're fucked up. So, but then you'll get shipmated by one of these guys and they think it's good because they don't know any better because they've never been out in the fleet. And you're sitting there like, man, fuck you. What the hell?
Wow.
And it's funny because you think it's a derogatory term until somebody who hasn't earned that right to say it calls it to you and it becomes way offensive. And it get like really peculiar about things.
And this is crazy because, we're bringing in people into the military, which ultimately equals war. So it seems like really not a great idea to bring someone into a possibility where they might be fighting for a country and they're bitter.
Right.
Like it doesn't make any sense to put someone in that situation. So kudos to you for at least having, the wherewithal to think, I probably should not encourage someone to do this who's not fit. Right. Versus just getting the bodies in.
But I also, with that being said, though, I actually got withdrawn from production because I was leading kids into the right direction. I didn't this isn't for you. Trust me, like this, and this. But, there does come an underlying responsibility where if a kid's going to sign 4 to 5 years out of his life, he better know what the hell he's getting into. Sure. And if your impression is just from a recruiter you just met and he's giving you all this information, you sign your life away, then that also relies on you as well, And so it's a give and take.
Is there an age limit?
There is for certain jobs. So I know that like for right now, you can join. I think you could join as early as 17, as long as you graduated high school, and then your parents like signed off that you can leave.
What about the other direction?
The other direction, I think reserves is up to 40.
Okay.
But like active duty, I want to say if you're getting past like 30 or 28, 27, 26, like don't even think about it.
Interesting.
Because unless you qualify for one of those special jobs, but if you're trying to go in and trying to get a job that requires like a 40 ASVAB or a 45 ASVAB, and this isn't knocking on a lot of people, but in all reality, those scores are so common that somebody else can, because a lot of those past a certain age, just like we were saying with waivers with drugs and criminal history, the same thing happens at age. You get way too old and you have to have waivers and so many waivers.
Because it's weird because like I know like you can't rent a car till you're 26. And a lot of that has to do with the cerebral cortex being developed and your ability to make logical decisions. But then kids are getting in the Marines and, Navy and getting, on ships with bombs and like missiles.
Right.
And they're 19, 20 years old. So it's like it would make more sense that we would wait to get kids in. But I know part of it also is the ability to, I don't say indoctrinate, but kind of like mentally condition someone before they're at a point where like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to do my own thing. So that's part. I got to be part of the reason, I would imagine.
Right. I would think, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, like we were saying, at a very impressionable age, they're doing all the grunt work that's being led by the 25, 26 and older type people.
Sure.
So just because, they're in the age and technically responsible enough to make that decision, they're doing the dirty work. A lot of it, like, even though they say like, hey, I'm a nuke engineer doing this, this, and this, the reality is like the first like year on the ship, I was cleaning the head, I was cleaning the, berthing, I was cleaning like crazy. And I, that's what they say. Like, that's a lot of sailors that you're a janitor first and then you're your rate, because all you're doing on the ship is just cleaning 24/7. But I mean, again, you need people to do the grunt work. You need people to learn from that and start at an early age. Why not?
So you did your 12 years.
I did my 12 years.
When did you determine you were, because I know, isn't there like a number, like 20 is like the magic
20 is
number?
a retirement, right?
Okay.
So I was in a precarious situation. My last deployment, I was supposed to get out in the middle of my last deployment, which was a 10-month deployment. So in my head, I was like, well, if I'm going to do 5 months, might as well finish out the 5 months and then get out on a shore duty. So shore duties, you're working your Monday through Friday 9 to 5 and not have to being on deployment. And then so all I did was re-enlist, and which means I just had to at least double the time I had remaining left on my contract, which was 3 years. And so I re-enlisted out to 6 years from that point, got a re-enlistment bonus, and then did my last 3 years on recruiting in Vegas.
Wow.
But that's the only reason why. And when I got to 12 years, I mean, I already knew I was getting out before that 12-year mark. But there's two things that went along with that. First, I promised my daughters I would never go on another deployment. Like when you're gone for 10 months at a time, like, oh my God, like you realize real quickly what matters in life. Right?
Sure.
And for me, it's my kids, my family, the people that I love. Number two, I picked up, I guess there's a lot of reasons. Number two, I have a job, or I have a qualification that can get me a 6-figure job anywhere. Like, and I'm comfortable now with where I'm working. And then the last thing, I was about maybe 10% on wanting to stay in, but doing that recruiting and dealing with those Navy career counselors, those NCs, those non-real Navy people, and dealing with them and their egos was what ultimately got me to like 230% I'm getting out. Like I was like 90% and like 230% because it's like these, oh my God, I just was so frustrated. So many people just on ego trips and just like saying like, I didn't join a Navy to watch my back and get backstabbed by some of these cowards that have nothing other to do other than to like throw you under the bus because you're from the fleet and they've never been there and they got to prove that they're worth it. I mean, that, dude, we will go into another show and I'll go into that.
That sounds heated.
There's a lot of stemmed animosity. Like, like one of the, so, I mean, I'll leave it at this with that. My first year, I was tasked to do nuke recruiting only, and it was by a master chief, and he was the head master chief there. There's an operations side, and then there's the actual chain of command, and the master chief was on the operations side. He didn't tell the other chain of command what he tasked me to do, so when they found out what I was doing, he said I went rogue. This master chief, E9, said I went rogue and did my own program instead of owning up to the fact that that he told me to do that. So they try to boot me out back into the fleet. But me as an E6 and I'm smart, like, fuck this. I'm not going to just own responsibility for being false accused. I saved every text message from that Master Chief. I saved every meeting for that we talked about. I made a 4-page synopsis as to every single time what he detailed me to do.
Yeah.
The chain of command still recommended me to get kicked back to the fleet. So this case went to region, right? So they're separated into regions as recruiting. Region ruled in my favor. Now that ruling went to Big Navy. Big Navy ruled in my favor. So now this paper trail goes back to the chain of command. And now this commanding officer who recommended me get back to the fleet gets told you're wrong. You're doing something wrong. He's staying. And so the next 2 years, the remaining 2 years I was at that program or in recruiting, they just took it out on me.
So they were still there.
A lot of them were still there. Not only were they still there, but they, when on their way out, were not teaching, but kind of influenced their replacements to do the same. It wasn't until I left and me checking out that a lot of those guys were finally filtered out. But like I would do boards, like recruiting qualification boards. And some of these lieutenant commanders who, again, don't have a sea service rep, don't have any type of warfare qualification, like I'd fail the board, they would fail me and then tell me, what have I done with my Navy career? And I'm like, what does that got to do with this board? I missed 3 questions. Like I started up God knows how many reactors. I did this, and this. And you have to the audacity to question me like about my Navy career. Like that's like completely unprofessional.
Wow.
But that's the type of stuff I did for like the last 3 years is dealing with that. And then I was like, I'm done. Like I'm never going to succumb myself to allow somebody else to have that much control. So I try to in general, it's helped me move on. Right. And obviously I have my view of it, but that's also why I'm like, hey, you guys need to be honest with yourself when you're trying to go in or if you're trying to, talk to recruiters. This is the nature of who they are as people.
Yeah.
Like you go in as a number, they'll treat you as a number. I don't care what your personal interest is. You're going to go in and just, if you qualify, you qualify, you don't, and kind of just be real with yourself at that,
Wow, man. 12 years is not, you don't have enough time in 45 minutes to go through all that.
No.
Even this alone, the recruiting side. But man, thanks for sharing that, man. I hope everyone got a good point of reference about the military. If any of you guys are interested, hit us up on social media. I'm sure Alan would love to talk to you more about it. If you're interested in actually joining the Navy, he'll tell you no, don't do it. no. But if you got serious aspirations, man, if it's Navy, Air Force, Marines, well, there's people out there who could definitely give you some information like Alan, and do your due diligence, because it's not just about I want to shoot guns and get on tanks and all that. There's a lot more to it.
Right.
And I think even just you talking about having a job, working 9 to 5, I think a lot of people don't understand that that's part of what the military life is. So thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely go more into that deployments and Navy life in general. But
yeah, definitely.
Pretty excited about that.
Definitely.
But yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So that's another. I just want to know. Thank you guys for joining us. Like, subscribe, check us out. Stay tuned. We're out.
Deuce.
Peace.